And the DVD we've all been waiting for. One that will get us to know Jonathan Power a little bit better, maybe. Hey, Jonathan, what's your favorite color?
Ooh, tough question right off the bat. You're really working me over. Gonna have to say forest green. Forest green is my favorite color.
Inspires you?
Oh yeah, it's got a lot of depth to the color. I'm into it. It's Canadian color. A lot of forests in Canada.
Good. What are your top 3 hobbies?
I'd say mixing music, playing other sports,
Like?
a lot of golf, a lot of basketball, and I'd say those are pretty high up there.
Golf, basketball, and playing music.
And yeah,
Mixing music.
yeah.
So what fires you up about your number 1 hobby, which is obviously mixing music? What fires you up about it?
Oh, just getting in my own headspace, just being by myself and putting on the headphones and really sort of getting into your own way of thinking and just being away from everything and just being consumed by something that's totally diverts your attention away from squash or away from anything that you're doing in life. And when you put on headphones and stuff like that, you just everything's blocked out, right?
It's like a good book or a film.
Exactly. So
good.
that's what I like most about it. Solitude.
How long have you been married?
5 years.
Travels and long absences from home can challenge any relationship. Yours is holding fine given the number of years Sita and you have been together. So how do you manage?
I put a lot of effort into it and when I come home, and I just all the time. It's just something that I treat like I treat my squash, or I treat anything that you love and put everything into. You just sort of work hard at it and try to do the best you can. That's what keeps going.
So outside squash, who is the athlete you admire most in the modern era and why?
The athlete I admire most, I'd have to say I go on and on and on about Allen Iverson. Because he's got the fastest feet and the softest hands and the mental toughness that could enable him to be world champion in any sport, like soccer, basketball, tennis, squash. Doesn't matter what sport he picked. He's probably, given his height and speed and strength and ability to understand the game, all the components, he's the number 1 athlete in my book.
Wonderful. Holds and deceptions are a big part of your game. At what period of your professional career did you decide that this would become your bread and butter game?
This is something that started way before my professional career. This was something I did. My dad exposed me to a lot of professional squash when I was a kid. I'd get to take the week off school and go to the tournament and watch and stuff like that. And of course, when you're a little kid, you're looking for the flashiest winner or something that sort of excites you. And I just sort of was attracted to that kind of play, like aggressive, sort of stylish play. And a lot of it was people telling me to do things one way, and I always wanted to get the same result by doing it another way, to sort of go, see, like that's sort of my personality. And
did you model this game after that of another professional player, or was this a creation of your own?
Yeah, I don't think I took one player in particular. I took bits and pieces from everybody that I'd watched over the years and just sort of applied this there and that there, and sort of constructed my own game out of pieces of other players. And certainly there's a lot of contributing factors, but I don't think I could single out one guy and say this is the guy I want to be. I didn't think like that. I wanted to take the best from each player and do as well as I could with that.
One in particular?
Guys that stood out were Brett Martin, Rodney Isles, John Shear. These were guys that really stood out and sort of played an attacking style of squash, and the brand of squash that I sort of maybe modeled most of my stuff after.
Okay. If you could pick one thing you enjoy the most from traveling the pro circuit, what would it be, Jonathan?
For me, it'd be without question all the people that I've met over the years. I've sort of always made an effort to sort of get a feel of the place that I'm in through the people, and I've met a lot of good people in all kinds of different countries, and I've tried to befriend a lot of these people, and I think that's been a main source of my learning outside of squash, is how I would sort of learn from different places, from different people, and I really enjoy that.
What do you dislike the most about your travels, and how do you deal with it?
I think it's got to be the packing. I really hate packing my bag. If there's anybody out there that wants to be a bag packer, I'm ready to hire you. Like,
Sita, maybe?
And Sita's not into it either. She does do it for me because she's a good girl, but I think that's the worst. I just like the living hotel to hotel and stuff like that it's just a little long and tiring sometimes and lonely a little bit, but there's not too much to complain about. I don't think it's that bad of a lifestyle.
That's good. Funniest anecdote at a tournament, a hotel, or an airport over the years? A funny one.
Well, without compromising, I'd be embarrassing too many people by telling some funny stories like that. It's difficult.
Keep it personal.
Yeah, something that's happened to me, I'd have to think that way. Well, I don't know about the funniest, but something that just came off the top of my head is we were down in Brazil playing a squash tour, and everybody's always playing soccer in Brazil. And we had the ball there, and we'd just been sort of flying from, I think, Sao Paulo to Rio. So we're in the Rio airport, and they start juggling the ball around, a couple of the European guys, and they pass it to me. But, I'm a Canadian guy. I haven't got a deft touch or anything with the soccer ball, so I kind of go off the knee, and it just goes a little out of my reach. So I try to keep it up with my foot, and I kick it way too hard. It goes right into the roof, and the entire roof comes falling down in the middle of the airport. And I've just sort of gone like that and looked around and just grabbed my bags and hiked out of there. So that was just one off the top of my head, but there's all the funny things for me are laughing at other people, not necessarily things that I've done wrong. But
they got you on that one.
That was one of the things.
How long does it take you to recover from jet lag and be ready to play from the time you land somewhere after a long flight?
It depends entirely on how far you're going and how long like if you're going a 12-hour time change like Canada to Hong Kong, that's a 4 or 5 day jet lag, so you got to get there 4 or 5 days before the tournament starts. If you're going to Europe, I'd say maybe only 2 or 3 good days of rest, and those are the main trips. That's about those are guidelines that I follow.
Highest wager on a single match outside the prize money? Can you tell us the story?
No, I'm not a gambling man. I'm a real safe kind of guy. Biggest bet would have been, I don't know, $10 or something.
Maybe a wager someone took on you.
Well, yeah, that's good. Good question. It sort of dawned on me that I was in Qatar, and
Which tournament?
The Qatar Open, and Joncher had won the tournament, I think 8 or 9 times. So the guy, they're so used to seeing Joncher win, and they sort of said, the guy said to me, I'm at the party that night, and it's quarterfinals night, and I'm celebrating a little bit, maybe a little bit too much. So I'm getting a little cocky, and he's like, well, if you win this tournament, he says, and you beat Joncher Khan and win the tournament, then I'll get you any ring you want for your wife. So I'm like, well, that's a pretty good deal. The guy was, feeling good, and so I said, I didn't have to put up anything in this bet. It was a pretty cool bet, and I just had to go and play it. And if I won, and it ended up happening, so I got given this ring. So it was pretty expensive on his part, but
And the ring was valued at?
I don't know. The ring was an expensive ring, but yeah, he honored his ring. Yeah.
Awesome. Court clashes. Physical contacts, dive, and falls are not uncommon in squash. So, can you tell us what goes through your mind following a rather violent contact with an opponent and a fall? There's often
Yeah, there's not a whole lot that I think goes through my mind. I just try to shake it off depending on the fall. I play a lot like that. I dive for a lot of balls. I just sort of throw my body around and just try to be really desperate and get as many balls back as I can, and play it as hard as I can. And
because there are times when you do fall.
Where you're falling.
There is a pause where we are wondering how badly you are injured.
Yeah, so they're mainly, unless you've torn a muscle completely, or.
But you don't know, like, what goes through your mind at that moment where is there fear? Is there.
No, yeah, of course you're afraid of doing anything serious. So immediately you're like, okay, am I all right? And you sort of check, bumps and bruises are okay. So you're like, okay, you walk it off, shake it off, and you're fine. But obviously, if you don't get up, that's a whole other story.
Referees' decisions in squash, although by the book, are often subjective. That may be the nature of the beast, but that never stopped you from defending your point of view during closely contested matches. Assuming that throughout your career you challenged 1,000 decisions from referees, how many of those did you manage to get reversed?
That's harsh. Probably not a whole bunch. Maybe I can count them on one hand. But I've gotten myself in more trouble than it's worth. I think you might be right on that one.
One question that may follow the 1,000 decisions that you were not able to reverse would be, how much does the crowd at an event have to do with a referee's pride not wanting to give you reason or not want to pursue any conversation with you in a debate? How much does the crowd have to do with that, and the fact that if I say that I was wrong, obviously I'm going to lose face.
Yeah.
And they hold their calls. Will the
Do you think because of the crowd? Yeah. I don't know how much the crowd. I think it depends on the personality of the referee, and I mean, some are weaker than others, some are stronger than others, some are more malleable, and you can get them to call the way you want to call, or you can bait them into having conversations with you. When you do that, you can also plant seeds in their brain to tell them how to make the next call, so you don't get that one. But if they engage in a conversation, players will plant seeds for the next time, and then that situation will come up again, and he'll make the call the player was hoping for the last time.
So, your preferences, do you like a strong-minded referee or one that is malleable?
I haven't met a referee that I like, so I couldn't tell you. There's not a referee that I like out there. That's my own problem. But strong can be equally as annoying as somebody who's inconsistent and weak and changes every 2 seconds. So there's no right way to referee.
If you could implement one change to the current refereeing system that could improve it, what would it be?
I would immediately do 3 players refereeing 2 players on the court. So basically, I would get rid of referees who'd never played, because like you mentioned before, refereeing is so subjective, right? So I would get rid of all the people who never played at that level, who don't understand squash at that speed, who just can't comprehend what's happening out there on the court. Because you can't understand just by watching. You have to be able to be in that situation of desperation and sort of be able to understand the game from that level. So I would have 3 players, because one player would be too controversial, whether he's biased or not. And all 3 players would be given their decision immediately at the same time. So you would have, one player would ask for a let, and you would have all 3 players basically holding up 1 of 3 cards or whatever. A no let, stroke, or let. and they all hold it up, and then 2 against 1, majority rules, and you're going to get the right call every time.
So
Or at least you're not going to get the call you want every time, but you're not going to get those outrageous calls that ruin matches and stuff like that, especially at crucial times. So I mean, it's very difficult because you have to pay the players to stick around and sort of officiate themselves and stuff like that. But that's the nature of the sport. You're not calling the ball in or out. You can get anybody who watches sports, who enjoys squash, to call the ball in or out. You're getting somebody to predict what's going to happen in the future. So if you've never been in that situation, how can you predict what can happen in that situation just from sitting and watching squash matches? You have to understand the situation. So that I don't see there much of a place for like WSF referees or referees who've gone through the refereeing system, because they just, no matter how hard they try, they can't comprehend the situation. So no matter, like no referee has ever started at a certain level and gotten good. Like I've never seen that in all my years. I've never said, wow, that guy's really improved his refereeing. I think he's starting to get it. I've never seen that ever. So I don't think you can really do it unless you sort of have player. That's my feeling. Of course, there's room for argument there, but
there are pluses and minuses in both directions. But assuming that we would pick your suggestions and go with the players, how would you deal with the personal conflicts that could eventually arise from this situation here, where a player is not necessarily fond of you and may lean one way or another? Would it?
Well, that's what I'm trying to erase with the 3 players. So if, say, there is a conflict with one guy, and he keeps, making calls against you throughout the whole match, you still have 2 other guys to overrule him. But I mean, with the players refereeing every matches, anything like that comes around full circle, right? So the next time I'm refereeing him, so players just are naturally not going to do that. They understand what's at stake, and they're not going to really try to, I just don't think, I mean, it can happen. And if you have one referee and when he has more power, then it can really change the outcome of the match. But if you have 3 guys, I think a guy like that can be pushed in the background if he's trying to sort of hurt you with his calls.
Excellent.
Very radical.
What do you normally say to yourself that helps you recover from a questionable call?
Yeah, I developed from years of being a petulant child. I've developed an ability to refocus after outbursts or after situations that haven't gone my way.
And how do you do that?
Just automatically have like a switch that I turn on, and I think long rally. And that's the first thing I do. And after 5 or 6 hits, like you'll never see me get a bad call and go for the nick on the return of serve. It's very, very rare. I have to really explode for that to happen. Like usually I'll just go a long rally. I'll say, okay, long rally. I'll hit the ball 5 or 6 times, and I've forgotten about that last point. So that's
excellent.
My trick.
In your view, what do you think would help raise the profile of the sport with the masses on the world scene?
Well, that's a tricky question, but I mean, obviously exposure is the first thing that you have to create the awareness. You have to educate people to the game, and that starts, the easiest way that we know is television and the internet. So these are the vehicles that squash has to use to sort of get it into other people's homes that necessarily haven't been brought up with squash or haven't been educated in the rules of squash and the subtleties of the game, because it's kind of like an American watching soccer. There's not enough action, and it's a little bit North American people are generally not looking for the subtleties in the game. They're looking for like wham bam. So you have to educate them on the subtleties of the game, and then all of a sudden they're like, wow, yeah, this is a great game. And squash is exactly like that. It's like, how tight does this guy hit it to the wall? It's very difficult to find out why some guy is beating the other guy if you don't know anything about squash. So it's about educating people to the subtleties of the game, and you have to do that grassroots television and trying to get people exposed to it from a young age. And if you grow up learning it, then you absorb it so quickly. And
Mhm. In your view, what would it take for the sport to get accepted in the Olympics?
a fat brown envelope in the back pocket of Jacques Roger.
Next question. Do you think a different scoring system could help? If so, what would you suggest?
A change of scoring could be good. I mean, badminton's done it, table tennis has done it. Those are similar, very comparable sports to squash, and some say it works, some say it doesn't work. But
What changes would you suggest?
my changes would be games to 5, and I play best of 9. So first one to win 5 games of 5, and what that does is it creates a lot more crisis points. So like everybody loves watching the game from 10-all. You know what I mean? So the lets are more dramatic. Everybody's scrambling around. There's no sort of positional points. Just every point is worth a lot. Is on the line. So you'll see more aggressive squash, more desperate squash, more outbursts with the referee, more attractive interaction with the fans, and that's what you want to create if you want to get people, you know, starting to on board with the sport.
Excellent. So Pro Tour players favoring a defensive style of play versus an attacking one have traded the #1 spot in the ranking over the last 40 years. Which style of play do you think will dominate the game in the next 10 years?
Well, the game has changed, I think, in the last 10 years. I think it's changed since they lowered the tin. It's changed dramatically, and I think it's going to continue to go in the direction of the attacking player and more aggressive, hopefully. I mean, but you've seen a lot more athletic players on tour, and you have to be very quick now because you got to cover a lot more balls to the front of the court. So the guys that are winning are very athletic and sort of taking the ball early and volleying and a more dynamic
So you're
way of
predicting
playing. I'm predicting
an
that
attacking style.
it's gonna continue like that.
The attacker will be the next #1.
It's attacking. Depends how you view attacking. Attacking with attrition, like you have to be attacking at the right time. It's just not going to be an all-out nick fest, but you have to be able to play both games. When you're not attacking well, you have to be able to defend, and when you're not, and when you are attacking well, then watch out. That's the way you want to play.
Mm-hmm. How many more years do you anticipate being on the Pro Tour?
A few. I'm still in my 20s. I'm still hanging in there. Not too old yet. So, and I'm still enjoying it. Because when you stop enjoying it, then I'll stop playing.
Mm. Did you make plans for life after the tour? On the business side of things, or on the personal side of things?
I don't know. I'm continuously making plans. I'm always into a lot of things. I got a lot of interest in. I started a shoe company and a clothing company, and I'm really interested in squash, so I'm not necessarily looking at things outside of squash, maybe outside. When I'm retired from the pro circuit, I imagine myself still staying in the game and trying to help players maybe achieve their goals, and maybe help in coaching aspect and developing my companies and stuff like that. And fun stuff, but always with squash because that's where my expertise lies.
Do you fear the end of your pro career, Jonathan?
No, I don't fear it. I mean, I don't want it to come anytime soon, but I certainly don't fear it. It's a time in everybody's career when you have to finish and you're not competing at the level you want to compete at anymore, and so you move on to other things. But doesn't mean I'm gonna leave squash or anything. It just means it's gonna end my playing career. Maybe I'll be a commentator. Maybe I'll be big on TV one day.
Thanks, Jonathan.
All right.
Best of luck.